Welcome to Power Play number 9, Major Pieces versus Minor Pieces. In this DVD I'd like to look at positions where there's a strange material balance, say a queen against a rook and a bishop, or a rook against two minor pieces, or when someone's the exchange up, a rook against a bishop or a knight. I think there's one thing in particular that we have to remember when you're playing with a queen or a rook. These major pieces are like giants striding across the chessboard. They are an all-powerful unit sometimes when they're playing against these minor pieces that just look like peasants compared to these almighty pieces. Let me show you a few examples. We're going to dive straight in with some positions. Let me give you a quick overview of what I want to talk about. So just very quickly, here we can see the power of the queen. Now this is a game I had quite a few years ago. My opponent has given up his queen for two rooks, so it's a rough material balance. But I was happy to go in for this because I felt that his pieces were, well, a bit all over the place. You can see already that this knight in the corner looks, well, slightly odd. I mean, of course, if it can come out, whoops, back to b5 and maybe to d4, then things will be absolutely fine for white. So yeah, it's an unclear situation. Basically what I have to do with the queen is try and find some targets as quickly as possible. Well, my opponent had a threat to play rook check and then to take this bishop. Well, I was very keen for him to actually carry this threat out, so I played bishop f5, and he didn't give a check, and I took king g7 and rook takes bishop. Okay, so this is the position I was aiming for. So now my opponent has rook, knight and bishop against my queen. Now if the rook, knight and bishop manage to coordinate, then they will beat the queen. There's no doubt about it. They're stronger. However, the queen is this just almighty unit that can just stride around the chessboard. Now watch what happens. This is what I was aiming for. What I have to do is get some attack. We'll see in plenty of other examples how the queen and the knight are a wonderful attacking combination. They combine so well together, they complement each other. So, first of all, this knight goes on the attack. I'm looking at this point here. We'll see this is rather important later on. The rook hurries to free itself, and yeah, possibly at some point, perhaps bring the knight out here, but that's okay, that's for much later. So I played queen to f6. Now, here we go, threat number 1. You can see how agile the queen is, so it's threatening to strike down on the back rank straight away. So my opponent hurries back, well, not just the back rank, actually, the second rank as well, looking through here. So my opponent hurries back with rook c2. Queen a1 check. So now the queen is really in its element. Queen d1. So it's looking for targets. When you have pieces, rook, bishop and knight, it's very difficult to coordinate them. You know, you have to look after all these pieces, whereas with the queen, well, that kind of looks after itself. You know, there's no problem there. The rook goes back, and queen b1, a nifty little shuffle back, and all I want to do is just come here, and then I'm in. And actually now, I think black has a winning advantage. I think white could have played more accurately, but it's so difficult to coordinate, to play accurately when you're playing against the queen. And here we go, queen c2. Actually, there was nothing really that white could do about this, and now I'm simply winning very, very easily. I found that weakness, that weak spot in white's position, and the game wins itself from now on. Well, my opponent gave up the rook, and it was all over. I dropped back and won the knight in a couple of moves. So we can see how powerful the queen can be, and it's like a heat-seeking missile, just finding these weak spots. So it went from E7 to F6 to A1 to D1 back to C1 and then C2 and then struck in on F2, and it's bounced back here and round here, and it's going to come back to A8. Well, you can see what strides it's made over the last few moves.